The year is 2020. It is June 24th, 2020. Wednesday at 11:34 in the morning. Where are we going?
We are going to Moses Taylor Hospital in Scranton, Pennsylvania to pick up little Miss Francesca.
So where should we start?
Well, I guess we should probably start on May 19th of 2020. I had just purchased a brand new car over some hesitance because it was during COVID and wasn't sure about the money situation and everything, but I went forward with it, purchased a brand new car. And then later that evening, I just was not feeling as much movement as I normally was. Yes. So I decided to go in the hospital, and because it was COVID, I had to go by myself, and they wanted to keep me overnight for observation. And when they took me back in the room, well, first of all, I was like, I don't even have any contact solution. And so he was able to bring a bag, but he had to drop it off in the lobby. Got my stuff and everything, and overnight, probably in the middle of the night, the nurse came in and said that there was a possibility they would have to deliver if the movement didn't pick up. So, long story short, the movement did not pick up like they wanted it to, and they said they wanted to take her, do a C-section to get her that morning. So I was able to call him to come.
But let's go back that whole night, that 19th, that whole night. I'm like sitting at home because I can't be there because of COVID, right? So I'm at home trying to watch stuff on Netflix. There's nothing to watch. I'm starting to fall asleep. Every hour or so, she's calling me. And then finally at I want to say 3 in the morning or so, she was like, okay, they said they're not going to do it, so you can go to sleep. So I was like, okay, this is amazing. So I end up falling asleep, and then I get a phone call at I think 7:30.
Yeah, about
7:30 in the morning that says you need to get here as soon as possible because they're gonna cut me open.
Yeah. So and then I called my parents and everything too, because I didn't let them know I was in the hospital that night, because I thought I was just gonna go in. They were gonna say, oh, everything's fine, and then I could go home, but that was not the case. And at that point, I was 31 weeks and 5 days along. And before the nurse came in to tell me that they were going to deliver the baby, a NICU doctor comes in and he starts talking to me about the NICU. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he proceeded to say, yeah, and we'll do all that today. And I was like, oh, so am I delivering the baby? And then the nurse came in and she was like, yes, you're delivering the baby today. We're going to take a C-section, do a C-section. And get her out. So Brad gets there, and they immediately take me back to the operating room. He has to wait until after the epidural. The epidural took 3 different attempts. Finally, the third one took, which was not very pleasant. And then I laid back on the table, and I did not feel a thing the whole time. I remember talking to the doctors about how I didn't even have a baby shower yet, even though it was canceled because of COVID, that we hadn't taken any birthing classes or, everything just happened so fast. I didn't even pack my hospital bag. In fact, I ordered a whole bunch of stuff on Amazon to put in my hospital bag that arrived when we came home from the hospital.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
yeah, and so she gets wheeled back into the room, and one of the nurses said that I had to stay there and wait 15 minutes, I think she said. So I'm sitting there waiting 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I think it ended up being 45 minutes. She comes running out. The nurse comes running out, and it was like, nobody came and got you? I was like, oh no, I'm still here. So and she's like, oh, quick, okay, we're about to do it. I walk in. As we're walking in, she goes, don't touch anything that is blue. Now, mind you, everything in that room was blue, except for the floor, the walls, and the ceiling. Everything else was blue, including what I was wearing. So I was like, I don't know what to look at. I don't know. But at that point, I saw out of the corner of my eye, I just saw like a bunch of red. So I'm assuming that she was already like being cut open and everything. And
we were I was nervous because I really had no idea what to expect. And they were saying how, she wasn't moving around very much. So I was like very nervous about what was going to happen. And then all of a sudden the doctor behind me who was watching my vitals and everything said, okay, they're going to pull her out. And I was like, oh my God, I'm cut open. Like I didn't even realize I was cut open. I didn't feel anything. And they pull her out and we hear her cry, which I think everybody was kind of shocked that they heard her cry because they didn't like the way her heart rate was going and everything like that. So that was a great sign. And they brought her over and we got a picture, which is just the ugliest.
The worst
covered
picture
in
ever taken.
Goo and
it's like spread eagle, a graphic image, but spread eagle, and she's just covered in all the amniotic fluid. It's all dried up and just gross.
Yeah, but it feels like a dream, really. So she was born, and the doctors let us know that she was probably going to have to be in the NICU for anywhere from 4 to 5 weeks, or maybe they said 4 to 6, somewhere around there. So we weren't even able to hold her or see her until
It was like 9
o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And she was born at 8:30 in the morning, 8:33 in the morning. So we didn't even get to see her until late that night, until I could get the feeling back in my legs and had enough strength to get out of the bed and into a wheelchair to get wheeled to the NICU. So waiting in that hospital bed was, I don't know, it was crazy. It was just a crazy experience, especially when you're like not even mentally or prepared or physically prepared in any way to go through it. It's just,
Oh yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Nobody's probably ever prepared.
No.
But at least you get to go through some classes. Normal situations, you get to go through some classes and that kind of stuff, so you can kind of understand, what's going on.
Yeah.
Or try to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Through the whole process, but it was an interesting. 2 days. It was the most interesting, most bizarre 2 days ever. And then
she was born at Moses Taylor Hospital in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I cannot say enough good things about all of the nurses, all of the doctors, all of the NICU nurses and doctors that we had. We're definitely very lucky to have such great medical care and staff for her and us while we were there. Everybody was just sometimes you hear like these horror stories of people giving birth with the doctors and nurses and things like that, but Moses Taylor, Scranton, we didn't have any problems at all. Like, we were very, very well taken care of, both me and her. But yeah, so she ended up spending 5 weeks in the NICU. She was 2 pounds 14.7 ounces when she was born and 14.5 inches. So she was, I think, the smallest or second smallest baby they had in the NICU at that point.
She was very small. I will put in a picture I'll show one here of her, bundled up, but she was cleaned off and she doesn't look as disgusting. But I just remember, also, during COVID, that whole first 4 days, I think it was.
Yeah.
She was in the hospital the whole time. She just tooted. Francesca tooted. While she was in the hospital, I went in and out because I came home to get some stuff, try to work out a little bit and come back. So every time you came into the hospital, you had to sign in, get a COVID cleared tag and all this stuff.
Temperature check.
Because I think at that point it was still in the red phase.
Yeah, it was the middle of May, so yeah, we were still in the red phase at that point.
And then after those 4 days, we went home, and then we'd come back to the hospital twice a day for the next 5 weeks. And that towards the end, the people at the door, they ended up knowing us, and they, and then so when we left, it was like, when we walked in with the carrier, they're like, oh, you're leaving with the baby's leaving today, or whatever. Yeah. And that was cool and all, but coming and going for 5 weeks was definitely pretty rough.
Yeah, and it was always like a new thing every day. You never knew what kind of news you were going to get. I mean, the majority of the time, I would say almost every day was good news for her. We were very, very lucky.
Yeah, she did have some times that weren't like, you walk in, at first she was able to breathe on her own, and she had decent oxygen levels, but she had to still have the airflow. And then she had the feeding tube for like a day or two, because being so little, she had to be on liquids and that before she could eat any kind of.
And she had her little IV in for, I would say, not even a week. I don't think they left it in.
It wasn't long that she was in on all that stuff, but going in, and then I remember going in, and the one day we would see her oxygen level, or her airflow level, because she was pretty good with oxygen, but her airflow level was at one number, and then the next time we'd walk in, it would go down by half a point, and then every day it would keep going down until we had that one scare where she stopped breathing for some reason. I think, I can't really remember.
Oxygen saturation levels went way down.
Right, but it was just I think she was sleeping, and she just maybe had some apnea or something.
Yeah, she had that periodic breathing, which they tell us is very common in preemies. It's just they have to, get used to breathing and making it become second nature to them. So she did have some scares with that. But overall, we were extremely lucky, I would consider ourselves.
Oh, yes, for sure.
With how she did in the NICU.
And there a couple things. The one biggest problem that we ran into, there was two. There was the one doctor who didn't know how to communicate with normal people, or average people, I should say. And then the time with her nose, they were trying to switch her feeding tube over from one nostril to the other, and they couldn't get it in. And I remember, I was like, well, then there's nothing wrong here. And they're like throwing out these words, and I remember choanal atresia, I think it was called. It was basically just the nostril is
one nostril is blocked.
One nostril is either partially blocked or fully blocked by bone, and so they said that's what she had. She would need this to get surgery. Oh, we went and saw people, and we're just holding off for now.
Yeah, she doesn't really.
She could breathe and everything. She's fine.
Yeah.
It's just she can't really clear out her mucus right now, But the one doctor we saw, the ENT doctor, said that a lot of people have this problem, and you don't even know that you may have it, because you're not getting checked for it. And the only way is if you're trying to shove something down your nose.
We would have never known she had it if she wasn't in the NICU,
right,
and they tried to put a feeding tube down her nose. So
right,
yeah.
And then the other one was the doctor, the neurosurgeon, who I remember.
Neurologist, not a surgeon.
Yeah,
neurologist.
Yeah. Right, neurologist. My bad. He was doing like an MRI of her brain.
Ultrasound. Sorry.
I don't know any of this. I knew it's an
ultrasound
too.
So that they don't have to put them.
Anyway.
they can do an ultrasound as long as they still have their soft spot.
Yeah. So I remember he's doing that, and he's like, I'm looking at the screen, and I'm like trying to see what's going on, and he's like mumbling to himself, and the one word he used was hemorrhage.
Yeah.
And the second he used that word, it was like she just like booked it out of the room, and it was like, I can't even handle this. And then we, the next time he like changed his wording, and then every time up until.
And then we were also very lucky that the one NICU doctor that we got, we grew really close to and everything, he came in and he said, He said it's very common. Well, not that it's very common, but he said most babies recover fully from whatever the doctor was saying. I honestly cannot even tell you what he was saying.
I don't know what it was, but I know he, all the tests that we've gotten done, he said that everything's growing at the same rate. So one part of her brain, I don't even know what it was called, was slightly larger than another, but it's all been growing at the same rates. So even though one side's a little bigger, it's still growing at the same pace. So
and that's fine. Also another thing. Like I spoke to our pediatrician about it, and he said, just because people recommend you go to this one doctor, or this one doctor is affiliated with the hospital, so you go to them. If you don't have not that we didn't have a good relationship with him, it was just that I didn't connect with him, and I didn't feel, he was, I don't know, I just didn't feel comfortable with him.
He spoke in medical terminology.
I'm sure he's a very smart doctor, but maybe he's just too, I don't know these terms, so I wasn't comfortable with it. But make sure that if you have that experience, that you tell somebody, or that you tell your pediatrician, I went to this doctor for her, and we didn't really have a great experience, and we weren't very comfortable. Could you recommend another one? So, I think that's important to know, because at first I kind of felt like we were stuck with him because he had seen her from the NICU on. But, you're not stuck with a doctor. There's always somebody else out there that you could go to.
Right.
Yeah.
And luckily, a lot of places have those children's hospitals too. So, the closest to us is Philly.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have, like, up here, they have this thing, the Ronald McDonald House. I don't know if that's
they're very common.
A nation thing or something, but, they said that if we were to go down to CHOP, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, or of Pennsylvania, which one is it?
I think it's Philadelphia.
We don't have to look that up and correct it.
I'm pretty sure it's Philadelphia.
But if you go down there, they'll put us up in the Ronald McDonald people will put us up.
Having a meltdown. Ooh.
They'll put us up in a hotel for however long we're there and help us out with food and all of that.
Well, because it was COVID times, they would have put us up in a hotel. Usually they have like a legit house, that you can stay in a room and
it's nice.
They provide food, they provide everything for you there.
Transportation and everything.
And we were very lucky to only be like 15 minutes away from our hospital. So we didn't really have to worry about, traveling super far, but for a lot of people, their hospital is a half hour plus away. So Ronald McDonald House is a great resource if you have one near you.
One thing that in the NICU that was kind of like not scary, but I guess it could be, is like all the noises.
Yes.
When like a number, every room has our NICU had, every kid had a different room. Every baby had their own room, and the every room had monitors, right? So she had a monitor, and the system would have every other room's monitor on it, so that if all the nurses are, say, taking care of her, and someone else is like one of the babies stops breathing or something, they could see that and go tend to that baby or something. So there was this one baby that wasn't doing too good, I think, and because when we were there first, I think there was only 2 or 3 of us in there, and every single it seemed like every 15 to 30 seconds he would just like beep, everything would go off, and then it would come back, and then it would go off. So there was never any quiet moments in that place whatsoever, whether it was her or if it was another baby or something. It was just like now. Yeah,
it was never quiet, and it was very scary. I would say for at least the first couple weeks. Even at the end, I didn't really get used to it. It was still scary. The noises. Hey.
Yeah. The good thing.
The one good thing about all the noises, which I think you were going to say, is that she is a very heavy sleeper now. And I don't know if the noises in the NICU contributed to that. All of those monitors constantly beeping. Plus, her room was right outside the nurse's station. So, always people talking on the phone out there. So
Yeah, there was a lot of noise.
So she has always been a very heavy sleeper. Like we have a dog. She's been walking around. You might hear her nails clicking on the wood floor. But she'll bark at the mailman, and Francesca will just sleep right through it. So, and I've heard that about other NICU babies too, that, the NICU is just naturally a little bit of a louder place.
Which is great, because now she sleeps
right. And I've heard that other babies
all through the night.
Are pretty good sleepers as well. So
the best part, I mean, the best part about being in the NICU for us was that the nurses, we had a couple nurses that became friends with us on Facebook, and they're really watching. We had this one nurse, we call her Crafty Sarah. She always made all these crafts, and for when she got to 3 pounds, when she was a month old, for Father's Day, for Memorial Day.
And then she even made her a onesie that said, my NICU nurse is my best friend.
Yeah, right.
Or my BFF.
And then we had 2 other nurses. Actually, one of the nurses that I think it was the first day when she was born is now moved over to the pediatrician office.
Yeah, so, two of them.
So they get to now see her grow up, and I think that's pretty cool too. But the fact that we were there for 5 weeks, but became kind of like a small little family. And it turns out one of the nurses actually worked with my dad a couple years ago. So that was kind of cool too. And then all the doctors were phenomenal. I mean, we all had our favorites, but same with the nurses. There were some that were crazy, but most of them were fun. You have anything to say, little one?
Okay.
Yeah, not that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. She's saying how much she misses the nurses. No, let's not do that.
Yeah. For us, the NICU experience was unpredictable, trying at times, difficult, but.
Right. The nurses were so good, and the doctors were so good that they made it. When they saw you struggling, they really they would come to your aid and really help you, reassure you that nothing, like if something was wrong, they would tell you in such a way where it wasn't it wasn't making you more alarmed. But if it wasn't something really wrong, they would let you know right away, so like her nose, they were like, yeah, this is a big thing, but she could still breathe. She's fine. Her oxygen's good. Her breathing rate's good. Everything is great. But yeah.
Oh, I will say one thing that was crazy. I don't know if I'm sure other NICUs do this. She had an eye doctor appointment. The eye doctor comes in to check on their eyes, because that's a big thing with preemies, because their eyes aren't developed and everything. But the eye doctor comes in, and she uses this metal thing to keep the baby's eye open, and then she has this little spatula that and the baby's screaming. That I did not like that. I understand that they have to do it, and I'm okay, but I did not like that at all. That was so hard to watch and be a part of. But I understand why they have to. But that was something that I had no idea they would be doing. So that's good to know, just to prepare yourself for. So
yeah, and I mean, of course, our favorite day was the day that our second favorite day was the day that was when the doctor said, why don't you bring the car seat in tomorrow or tonight, and we could see, make sure we have everything together. And we're like, oh, yeah, she's finally coming home. And I think it was a couple days later that they were like, yeah, she's definitely going to be able to come home and go home tomorrow or something. And I was like, that was the best. But and then she was sent home with this.
She had an apnea monitor, which strapped around her, and tracked her breathing and her heart rate, and it would go off. And they sent us home with that because of the choanal atresia and her breathing.
Right. And it went off once. It went off 3 times, but all of those times was when the pads came off of her or the battery was low.
Which, when that thing goes off, it is frightening.
It was scary. Very scary.
But yeah, she did very well. She had it on for about a month, and then they send the results to the hospital. They review them, and he was comfortable with us returning it. But it's also just this. It's attached to her, and then it's like this little purse thingy. It's like this big. It's like this huge. Big, and it has a strap around it. So anywhere you had her in the house, you had to put this thing on. And then there were like these wires, and you didn't want to trip on them. It was
the day that came off was.
Oh, that was such a big day.
That was definitely like the 3rd best day.
Yeah, that was.
That may be number 2 actually.
That was a big day.
But yeah, and like we've had plenty of doctor's appointments. Ooh, we're gonna have to end. We've had plenty of doctor's appointments and everything, and I think it's really great. But I think for the most part, that was pretty much the NICU experience. And and I think if there's any questions or anything that you'd like to know about possible NICU experiences, then leave a comment below, and we'll be sure to try to answer those questions.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us today about our NICU talk and
baby talk with Francesca.
Yeah, baby talk with Francesca, and we'll see you next time. Are in the car.